Namah Shivaya, good evening. How are you doing with the heat wave? You made it here, that's very good. Okay, you're keeping yourself kind of cool, mind calm and cool.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, good. Bob Bonnie, whenever I was commenting, you know, sometimes when it gets, well, summer anyway, right? But especially when it gets hot, sometimes people get extra crazy a little bit in their mind. You know, in some way they get a little bit overheated, right? Not just physically, but the mind starts to go a little bit crazy. Yeah? We're doing sadhana, we say this, right? That turns up the heat on our, especially our subconscious mind, our tendencies, our habits, and all the kind of stuff that lies a little bit under the surface of our awareness. That our sadhana will heat that up. You know, if we're practicing regularly, that's already getting heated up. And then we have the outer stimulation of the heat wave and the kind of the energy of the city. Sometimes people's minds get extra restless, extra agitated, extra impatient, and aggressive or irritated. But it seems like that's not the case for you, so that's good. So we were kind of saying, well, what to do, right? What to do when that happens, right? When the mind gets really kind of, how to say, just really reckless, right? Sometimes can happen, right? In summertime, the mind gets reckless. And I happen to be reading a little bit from this book called Gospel of Divine Life, which is just accounts of life with Swami Sivananda at the ashram of him in Rishikesh. And I just happened to be reading something where someone was asking him some questions, kind of like this, kind of, what to do? What's the advice when the mind's especially outward going and restless and somewhat kind of random? And so this was someone, Master Sivananda was talking with someone who was visiting the ashram, and he was asking a question. He says, how can we develop this equanimity in the midst of pleasure and pain? So this is part of a conversation that's happening between them. He says to Swami Shivananda, he says, you are so tranquil and peaceful, and therefore you are always happy. But we are easily upset by everything. So especially depending on your temperament and your constitution, when it's extra warm outside, that heat also turns up that tendency, if that's there in you, to get a little bit upset, to be maybe a little bit extra critical. If the mind's already naturally outward going, that's the human mind, right? Naturally outward going, and we're not really persistent and steady and consistent with our practice and patient, then all those tendencies are going to get greater, right? That heat is going to turn up, and everything's going to get pushed to the surface. The mind's go out and starts to get very critical, very judgmental, very irritable. So here's Master's reply. And naturally, there are answers of things that are going to turn the mind back inward, right, where it can be cool and calm again. He says prayer and devotion is cooling and calming. He says prayer, japa. Japa is a repetition of mantra. This reroutes the outward going tendencies of the mind inward. When the mind's going outward, it leads us to more frustration, more feeling of being limited and frustrated by that. When we reroute the mind back inward, we start to feel more purpose and meaning. So prayer, japa, kirtan. So there you just did some good practice, especially like that, right? When you have a lot of Sanskrit and maybe you're singing a little bit out of your range, but you make that effort, what's the effect? How do you feel after that when you make that effort? Happy. Especially when you keep saying the name Ram as much as we just did, right? Because then the meaning of Rama is abiding joy. So you keep bringing the mind back to focus on a name like that, and there's no other result. It's unfailing. The result is unmixed happiness. So it's simple. But do we want to do it? Yeah, can we kind of just get ourselves to sit and do it? That's the issue then. So he says, prayer, japa, kirtan, cultivation of virtues and eradication of vices, selfless service and study, all of these will help you attain equanimity of mind. So if we're asking for equanimity, we want those practices that bring the mind back inward. So then the person asks the next question. He says, the last and strangest of problems, Swamiji, is this, many of us do not even have the inclination to cultivate virtues. How are we to bestir ourselves for doing anything in this direction? So if we're honest with ourselves, that might be more the issue. We have the practices, we have the opportunities, and we have the good fortune to have this place. You know how many people don't have access to this kind of practice or any bit of community at all? You know, we were talking this week, the great teacher of Vedanta, Adi Shankaracharya, tells us that human birth is a very rare thing. And something we've very much been taking for granted, I have to say, right? We look around the world, we think there's billions of people, and most of them are, maybe we're thinking a little bit, most of them are kind of, not so much, right? We think like that, right? So the world is full of people, what's the problem, you know? Well, actually, if you think bigger, and take another step back, and think of all of creation, how rare is human birth, and how much rarer is one where we have the opportunity, the freedom, first of all, right? The freedom, the luxury, all the privileges and advantages to learn, and to be supported in some regular practice, spiritual practice. Practice that is designed solely for our own happiness. How rare is that? And then how much rarer is us to really want to apply it? So everything's been given to us, things that so few beings, who knows, in this cosmos have. Like we have human birth, that means we have intellect. Right? So when the mind starts going outward and complaining about something, a clear intellect will say, does it really matter? Right? Or when the mind starts to say, well, why is this? Then maybe the more clear intellect will respond with the question, what's it matter to me? Have you ever tried this on yourself? When your mind starts worrying or complaining about something, and you just ask it, what's it to do with me? What's it matter to me? And watch it stop for just a moment. Because it doesn't really have a very good answer, even when we think we're really justified in our complaint or a judgment. So just try it next time. Yeah? The mind starts going off on something, you say, oh, but what does it matter to me? And you'll notice that it actually probably doesn't. Or if it does, then the mind's calm and clear again and can deal with it because it's taken the emotional part out. When we're thinking with our emotions, not so much rational. But when we come in with a little bit of clearer intellect to guide the emotions, and we're doing practices that are turning the mind inward to reroute that energy upward, then we can deal with what we need to deal with. But most of the time, you ask the mind, well, what do I care? And you'll find not. You don't actually. It has nothing to do with you. So much of our mental energy is spent worrying about what other people are doing or not doing. It's preventing us from doing what we need to do, right? From being happy. Okay, I got diverted. So this intellect of ours, tending to take us in the wrong direction, but only slight shift in the questions can turn us right back in the right direction. So then, we become the rare ones who have human birth with a gift of intellect. The practice is to help us sharpen it so that it's actually useful to us and taking us toward happiness rather than toward more limitation. And the other wonderful thing about human birth is that we have called purushartha, self-effort. And that's the part that this person's asking about. What if we don't really have the will to do this work? That's the rarest thing yet. Yeah, to have the will to do the work. So many people are in the right position, been given everything, and still can't quite get past their own resistance. So what Swami Sivananda responded was the way to do this, so we're speaking to the choir here, the way to do this is resort to satsang. That's what he says. Satsang. You know, what does it mean? We know, company of true good people. People are trying to make their good choices, the sattvic choices. People who are interested in truth, what's really true, what really matters. So we want the company of those people, satsang. And we have opportunities for it. Not just here, like this, although this is extremely important. But choosing the company we keep. One second. Because think of it, the opposite, another word, so we have the word satsanga, but then we have the opposite is called dusanga. Du is like evil company. Doesn't mean evil like a cartoon, right, with some character with a horn and pitchfork or a witch hat or something. What does evil mean? Those who assert their identification with limitation. Because du is like, the dusanga is like the du of dukam. Dukam is misery. So evil, to us, to yoga, is knowingly not making the sattvic choices, right? Understanding what is a sattvic thing. Does it make sense? You know what is sattvic thing? The thing that's going to take us to welfare of all, to harmony and contentment. Knowing what it is, yet still choosing not to do it. And that's what would be considered sin to yoga. Just making my own obstacles by not doing what I know is a good thing. Why? Because I think it might not be pleasant enough. Maybe I'm a little bored. Maybe I'm taking things a little bit for granted. I've forgotten what a privilege it is to be doing what I'm doing and to have all that I have. So I choose company of so-called evil people. No, they're not evil. They're nice people. Maybe they're friends we've had for years. Or they're just very entertaining to be with. Maybe we have very stimulating conversations. But it's taking my mind outward again. It's making me forget again what's important. So we have the choice to keep company with people who are really striving, doing that self-effort, trying to do that work, which is not easy. So we see them struggle sometimes. And sometimes they're trying to hold a higher standard. And maybe that scares us a little bit. So we kind of turn away and we find the easier company. Because it's more fun to engage in a little bit more drama. That's what the mind likes, drama, basically. A little bit more gossip or no overt harm in it, but it kind of puts the fire out in our aspiration. And that's the heat we want. Right? That heat that is doing that work on our subconscious mind, turning up all the nonsense, we want that. It's uncomfortable, but we want that. So what do we do when it gets hot in some way? We throw dirt onto the fire of our aspiration because it's getting uncomfortable and we seek the fire of outer stimulation. Evil company. Not evil. Not devils. But we're following the little devil in our mind that's saying, that person's not doing what they should do, so why should I care? Or, not today. Just not today. I don't want to get up and meditate today. That's the little devil you have to also be careful of. That you don't want to keep company with that. You have to be constantly vigilant with the mind. So Master says, Satsanga. Seek the company of truth. Even if you're not, say, I don't know, maybe you're living in the forest. You don't have people around you. You do. But let's just say, you're somewhere without company of people who are really striving to stay on the path of the good, of abiding joy. And then you have the scriptures for that, and that's what Master says here. He says, the way to resort to do that, to bestir ourselves to do anything in the direction of cultivation of virtues, he says, is to resort to satsang. He says your mind will naturally turn toward the spiritual path. If you can't get satsang, read books of great souls and scriptures. This is also called satsang, because what you do, you tune to the lineage. You read a book by Adi Shankaracharya, you tune to him. You read a book by Swami Sivananda, you tune to him, and you start to come into kind of a subtle relationship, support and guidance that is there. He says, slowly dispassion and discrimination will dawn in you. You should have aspiration. Then God's grace will descend and lead you on. So the mind's constantly looking at all the shiny things, and distraction. This is dissipating our energy. You say, oh, let me go have some enjoyment. This is dissipating our energy. Now I don't have energy for my practice. And now I'm looking who's to blame. Yeah? So we want to not throw the dirt on the fire of our aspiration. We want to feed it with our attention. So with that in mind, since they were speaking of cultivating a virtue, so we need to make those small exertions to even inspire ourselves, right, to carry on with the cultivation of virtue. This means we have to keep bringing the mind back inward again and again. And it means we have to cultivate attention in a whole new way. Right? Rather than falling for the distractions all the time, we have to bring a concentrated awareness to the present, to whatever it is we're doing. And this will cool the mind, this will calm the mind, and this will bring us back to that strength and energy, that well that is holding that fire of our aspirations, like a little flame we're trying to hold. Then, as we always tune into the masters, I will take a random virtue for us to work on, if you're willing. This week from his book, How to Cultivate Virtues and Eradicate Vices. So I just pick something at random and see what it is. Okay, toleration is our virtue for the week. Yeah? Tolerance. That's a tall order, especially in the heat, right? Because that's the first thing we lose, is our tolerance. Okay, here's how he describes it. Toleration is enduring of offensive persons or opinions. But why should we do that? Immediately the mind says, no, but that person's offensive. I need to hold them responsible for their being offensive with my intolerance. And how has that served me so far? It hasn't. Tolerance is freedom from bigotry. It is spirit of charitable leniency. Tolerance is a disposition to tolerate or not to judge or deal harshly or rigorously in cases of differences of opinion, conduct, or the like. So we can just try, one effort we can make is try to take some of the harshness out of our speech. Just try it, take the harshness, so we can start to respect, oh, how do I sound and how do I move when I interact with that person I consider offensive, or I think I don't approve of their conduct. What is my body language like? How does my voice sound? And try to soften it just a little bit. Try to go a little more gently. He says, you do not have the monopoly of wisdom. Do not criticize destructively. Your neighbor's way and opinion may not be yours. It may nevertheless be as good. Never condemn rashly, but judge righteously. Be charitable and kind to one another. This is our quote for the day. Be charitable and kind to one another. Be tolerant. There are diversities of opinion even among the best people. This should not breed hatred. No two minds are alike in nature. Intolerance is a crime. So maybe we're keeping company with people who seem to be spiritual, but they're intolerant. That means that's dusanga. Because their intolerance is a crime. I'm keeping company with people who are intolerant. That means they're evil company, even if they're lofty in their talk, if they can quote the scriptures and they can stand on their head for 10 minutes. Yeah, so we have to be discerning in the conversations we have and the company we keep. Have a wide vision, have a broad outlook. Give space in your heart for everybody. Be broad as the sky. He says tolerance leads to bliss. As there are people of various temperaments, capacities, and tastes, various schools of thought, cults, and societies are necessary. The fundamental principles or essentials of all religions are the same. Here he's talking about religious tolerance. One should have perfect tolerance towards other faiths. he's giving an example of intolerance. He says, a renowned doctor went to see the chief of a particular faith at a certain place. He heard him saying, Lord Krishna is a lower personage. At once he left the place and had no faith in him. He told me later that he had full faith in the shloka of the Gita saying, there is nothing whatsoever higher than me, O Dhananjana. All this is threaded on me as rolls of pearls on a string. He's giving a specific example of religious intolerance. He says to say that Lord Krishna is on an inferior stage, that one can have shanti only through this faith, only is highly deplorable. This is perfect intolerance and narrowness. But just listen to what Lord Krishna himself says in the Gita. In whatever way people approach me, even so do I reward them. May Lord bless you with broad tolerance and a large heart. May you be free from carping and cavilling. May you all recognize the oneness or unity of Atman. May you embrace others with divine love. May you all realize the unity of all religions. May you not indulge in religious controversies and debates. May you all silently rest in your own all blissful and silent self and enjoy the eternal bliss within and through deep meditation. And he says, Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. He says 3 times Shanti. Peace for me, peace for you, peace for all world. How do you want that?